Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're talking about my Week 6 quarterback starter sits for the 2019 fantasy football season. On today's episode, we're going to be going over some news around the National Football League that has to do with fantasy football in terms of injuries and the Thursday night matchup. Then after that, we're going to be going over the matchups for Week 6 at the quarterback position, then going over my top 16 quarterback rankings on the week. Before we get into anything else, let me remind all of you, if you haven't yet already, click that subscribe button, join the community, and also click that bell notification button to stay up to date on my latest content. And don't forget to click the like button on today's video. Hey everybody, how's it going? All right, so before we begin, let's talk about some news around the National Football League. There are a lot of players that are questionable and injured thus far, and I just wanted to go over them so that everyone's on the same page. As we usually do, we go over some news. So number one, a couple running backs that did not practice today as well as yesterday, David Johnson and Todd Gurley. David Johnson is dealing with that back injury. So for those of you who, whether or not you own David Johnson, I would suggest going and picking up Chase Edmonds if he is available in your league. Also, Todd Gurley is dealing with a quad injury. They say it's a quad contusion. Has not practiced the last 2 days. The quote that I heard from Sean McVay was that he was shocked that he was injured, considering the game was last Thursday and they didn't hear anything about it until pretty much the last couple days. So if you are a Todd Gurley owner or you don't even own Todd Gurley, go and pick up Malcolm Brown. These are two players that if they are available and they're the guys ahead of them, David Johnson and Todd Gurley, do not play this week, these are two guys that are potential top 12 running backs for free off of waivers if they are still available. So go ahead and do that, pick up their handcuffs. Also, Devontae Adams, still out with that toe injury, did not practice today either, which is unfortunate. Sammy Watkins did not participate in practice today either. And Marquise Brown still dealing with that ankle injury. They said it wasn't severe, but he is missing some duly needed time. So we'll see. We'll keep that monitored. Just I wanted to bring it up so everybody's on the same page. Limited this week. I don't have updates for Thursdays on these players because they haven't really released anything. But so far, Christian Kirk was limited, which is good to see. Yesterday, Tyreek Hill was limited. Brandon Cooks was limited. T.J. Hawkinson was limited. And so was Vernon Davis. Those three guys, Hawkinson, Davis, and Cooks, all three sustained concussions last week. They are all in concussion protocol, but they were limited in practice doing individual drills yesterday. So that's good to see. Tyreek Hill and Christian Kirk both trending towards a correct direction with limited practices on Wednesday. Hopefully, if they continue to trend in the right direction, they can play this weekend in pretty favorable matchups that would help them and their fantasy owners. All right, moving on. Let's talk about Thursday night. Who is out? Again, I mentioned this yesterday. Evan Ingram, Saquon Barkley, Wayne Gallman, Sterling Shepard. All four of those guys are out. You pretty much the only pieces that you could potentially start is maybe a Golden Tate and a Ron Hillman. Or John Hillman, excuse me, not Ron. Jonathan Hillman. That's the only options that you could potentially play in the matchup this week. Other than that, Rex Burkhead has been deemed out, and so has Philip Dorsett. So with Rex Burkhead out for another week, again, Sony Michel's value only increases, especially because of how bad the New York Giants are against opposing running backs. And James White, another great flex option. Guys, he's been putting up 10 points a week, always has the upside of an extra touchdown and big performance. I think James White, always a great flex option. If you have, three other top 18 running backs, sure, you don't have to play James White, but I really do think another good week for him is about to approach. With Philip Dorsett out, it only helps Edelman and Josh Gordon, like I mentioned yesterday. But those are the pieces of news that I wanted to go over. Obviously, there are other injured players that did not practice on Wednesday, like Julio Jones and Larry Fitzgerald. But those are just in case. That's going to happen on a weekly basis. Those players, because they are veterans, are going to miss some time, and they're going to just hold them out just to be cautious, make sure that nothing is too worrisome about any injury. They just want to rehab and take care of them. So all is well. We should be fine. Let's go ahead and let's talk about Week 6 at the quarterback position, starting off with the matchups, shall we? All right, so getting into it. Which team gives up the most points to opposing quarterbacks on a weekly basis? Well, it's the Miami Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins are coming off of a bye week, and they're playing against the Redskins. Two winless teams fighting it out this week. Should be a boring one, but to be honest, it could be a higher scoring affair considering both teams are giving up the Washington Redskins are number 4 on this list, and the Dolphins are number 1. This could be a higher scoring event, but I really do think that the only person that we can trust is on the side of the Redskins. It would have to be the combination of a Case Keenum, Terry McLaurin combo, which is not a bad idea. On the other side of the football, Josh Rosen could put himself in a good position to win a game. Him and Preston Williams, Adrian Peterson also for the Redskins. But either way, in terms of quarterbacks, I don't mind Case Keenum, especially considering a lot of your teams in your league potentially dropped him in the last couple of weeks. Now that he's been named the starter, not a bad option here. Moving on, the Falcons and the Cardinals, they play against each other. They're both giving up a ton of points to opposing quarterbacks. Kyler Murray versus Matt Ryan should be a shootout. I mean, the way I see it, I probably anticipate the Falcons winning this game because Kyler Murray has kind of been iffy in terms of the passing game himself. If Christian Kirk is not to play and they can't put together some sustainable drives, and if David Johnson is to also miss time, it's going to hurt this team, surely. So I do think that the Falcons are going to win. I think Matt Ryan's going to have a big game, and it should be good. But both of them, great matchups and should be viable options. All right, also giving up a lot of points to the quarterback position. The Saints, the Buccaneers, the Giants, the Raiders, the Houston Texans, and the Bengals. This sounds good, right? Lamar Jackson, good to go. Patrick Mahomes, good to go. Raiders are on a bye, no big deal. Against the Giants, Tom Brady, good to go. Kyle Allen against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Is he capable of exploiting the matchup, or is he just a fill-in quarterback that needs to just survive and hope that Christian McCaffrey can carry him? That's all we've seen as of late. And then the New Orleans Saints get Gardner Minshew in Jacksonville. Should be another good one. All right, moving on to the more difficult matchups, like I always do. The New York Jets playing tough against defenses, or playing tough against quarterbacks defensively. I don't know. I don't believe that. I think Dak Prescott's going to be fine. He's going to take care of this defense. The Minnesota Vikings are going to give Carson Wentz some struggles. Because of how good Minnesota is against the run potentially, I do think this is going to affect their offense as a whole, and Carson Wentz is going to have to throw the ball in order to be successful. If Deshaun Jackson is out another week, it doesn't help him, but he's going to have to find Ertz. He's going to have to find Alshon Jeffrey and put together a pretty good performance there, but it's going to be tough for him. Carolina Panthers played against Jameis Winston. We have the Green Bay Packers, the Dallas Cowboys, Chicago Bears on a bye, the Broncos, the 49ers, the Bills on a bye, and then the Patriots giving up literally no points to opposing quarterbacks. I don't think that's going to change. Just wanted to give you guys a little bit of perspective on how many points defenses are giving to opposing quarterbacks in 6-point per passing touchdown formats, because that's what I love to play, and just kind of give you some perspective. So anyway, now that we've kind of looked over this, we're going to get into my top 16 rankings at the position and kind of give you guys some perspective on my opinion on this week and why I think it's going to go in this specific direction. Now, we have number 1, Patrick Mahomes. Again, I'm living and dying by the Patrick Mahomes blade. Like, to be honest, I think Tyreek Hill is going to play. That only helps this offense. Sammy Watkins not playing is not a big deal. I don't think that's going to affect him very much. The upside of Patrick Mahomes this week is pretty high, considering how bad at times this Houston Texans defense has been against the pass. And in general, I really do think an offense like the Kansas City Chiefs of all offenses, yes, they have been slow to get anything in the last 2 weeks, but they are still an elite offense, and they know how to turn it on. And if you can bring a playmaker like Tyreek Hill into this offense, open it up even more, there's going to be a potential for Patrick Mahomes to get back on track. In the last 2 weeks, he's only thrown 1 touchdown after going 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns to start the year and looking like the Terminator. As of late, has been pretty slow, but I think he's going to get back on track this week at home against the Texans. He's my number 1. Moving on to number 2, on the other side of that matchup, like I mentioned, it's going to be a higher scoring event. I do believe so. Yes, we can look at the other matchup between the Colts and the Chiefs and say maybe it's going to be like one of those. But I do think after what I saw Deshaun Watson was capable of doing last week, putting up, 5 touchdowns, 2 to Darren Fells for God's sake, and then 3 to Will Fuller. Excuse me. I really do believe there's a pretty good chance. Sorry, I don't know. I lost my train of thought coughing there. The whole thing is Deshaun Watson, because of his ability to run the ball, and because of so here's the biggest thing. All right, Deshaun Watson this week has probably more weapons than Patrick Mahomes. Like, if we think about it pound for pound for the weapons that he has, right? Patrick Mahomes has his Kelsey, his potential Tyreek Hill, And then he has, a plethora of running backs and then a couple speedsters, right? That's pretty much all he has. You have DeAndre Hopkins on the other side of the ball. You have Will Fuller. You have Kiki Cutie. And then you have Darren Fells or Atkins who's going to catch a ball. And then you have your plethora of running backs. Excuse me. Again, this is going to be a higher scoring event. There's no way that Deshaun Watson cannot keep up with Patrick Mahomes, and there's no way that Patrick Mahomes can't keep up with Deshaun Watson. I think because of the matchup itself, both of these guys sit atop of my 1 and 2 list, and they could go either way. It could be the Deshaun Watson number 1. As long as this offensive line continues to hold right and protect Deshaun Watson and give him the ability to sit in the pocket and use his arm, it's going to help. Even if it doesn't, the pocket can collapse. Deshaun Watson always has the ability with his legs, and so does Patrick Mahomes. So we always have to keep that in mind. But either way, I think I don't even need to talk about it anymore. Deshaun Watson's, he's my number 2. Russell Wilson at number 3. Mr. Consistency continues to do it on a weekly basis. Has the Cleveland Browns defense this week that did not look good this past week. They're going to do exactly what the 49ers did. They're going to run the ball heavily. They're going to set up play action. They're going to feed the tight end. And then over the top, they're going to find Tyler Lockett for a couple touchdowns here, or 1 touchdown potentially on a deep bomb. That's exactly what this offense does every single week, right? They never change offensively. They're a run-first team that is going to hit you with play action, use tight ends, and use speedy receivers. And nothing's really going to change there. So Cleveland knows what's coming. If Cleveland cannot offensively, fire back, it's going to be a blowout. And then we're going to see Russell Wilson kind of disappear because they're just going to run the clock out with Rashad Penny and Chris Carson. But I think we'll get a little bit more fight out of the Browns this week. Therefore, Russell Wilson will have to score even more, and he'll be fine. He's my number 3. Number 4, Tom Brady playing against the Giants on Thursday night tonight. Should be easy. It's a free matchup. The last 6 weeks or the last 5 weeks for Tom Brady have been free matchups. The guy's been fantastic. With or without Antonio Brown, it doesn't matter. These are such favorable matchup. I cannot understand how they got such an easy schedule. But hey, the Giants offense not going to produce anything. Probably, probably force a lot of turnovers here and there with Daniel Jones trying to make plays. It's just going to set up short field advantages for Tom Brady and the running game. They're going to pass the ball. They're going to put up 30 some odd points, and it's only going to just, get out of control after a while, and then maybe they'll run the clock out in the second half. But either way, Tom Brady, he always wants to put that extra, knife into the side of the Giants whenever he has the opportunity, and he has it this week. Moving on to number 5, Matt Ryan. I honestly thought about putting Matt Ryan at number 1. I think that of the quarterbacks on this page, who has the best chance of being number 1 outside of a Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, it really is Matt Ryan. I think this week against the Cardinals, even though it's in Arizona, that's perfectly fine. It's a dome stadium. The Cardinals can't stop us all defensively. It's going to be... I think there's a potential that if, in fact, this Cardinals defense does give them trouble, it's not going to really matter. There are way too many weapons for Matt Ryan to feed. We found that in the last couple of weeks that he has 5 viable options, right? Freeman, Hooper, Sanu, Ridley, Julio. They'll probably bring, Ito Smith, even in the passing game. There are so many viable options for this offense. I cannot see a possibility in which Matt Ryan isn't dominating once again in a higher scoring event. And that's why he's at my number 5. Number 6, Lamar Jackson plays against the Bengals. Again, these are another one of these easy matchups. As long as Lamar Jackson does not turn over the ball, he is a good quarterback. As soon as he starts turning it over and he puts his team behind and they have to force the pass, it becomes a little bit tricky. Now, here's the thing. I don't think they're going to have to get, they're not going to be behind. They're going to run the ball. They're going to be successful at running the ball with Mark Ingram, Gus Edwards, he himself, Lamar Jackson. And they're going to take over the game, and they're going to get a pretty early lead. From then on, it's just gravy points. I really do think Lamar Jackson in this Bengals matchup just seems a little too easy, and he should be perfectly fine. My only concern is the absence of Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown. If he's gone, other wide receivers are going to have to step up, but I don't think this defense is tough enough to force Lamar Jackson to make too many mistakes offensively, even with backup receivers. All right, moving on to number 7, Dak Prescott. Again, another easy matchup. These quarterbacks, they are the best in the league, and they're getting easy matchups. It's free. It is literally free points. I do not think that the New York Jets are going to be able to stop Dak Prescott. From what we saw last week, we saw a good secondary from the Green Bay Packers, forced Dak Prescott to turn over the ball multiple times, 3+ times, a couple of them called back. We saw him they forced a lot of turnovers out of him, and he was still fighting till the end. This team did not give up. They grinded it out, got a lot of garbage time points. I don't even care what's going to happen. I think this Dallas team's going to come out and they need to put their flag into the ground and say, hey, we're here for a reason. We won 3 games in a row for a reason. We're not pretenders. So we'll see how Dak Prescott reacts this week, but he should be good. Moving on to number 8, Aaron Rodgers. All right, here's the thing about Rodgers. Didn't do anything last week. In fact, that entire offense was predicated on running the ball and just feeding Aaron Jones in the red zone. Now, does that hurt Aaron Rodgers' potential this week? Absolutely. There's always the fear that, hey, the Detroit Lions, they give up a lot of points to opposing running backs. They're not great against stopping the run. This offensive line for the Packers have looked fantastic as of late. They don't have Devontae Adams. Are they going to continue to key in on running the ball, and when they get down to the goal line, just feed Aaron Jones, and potentially, if Jamal Williams comes back, continue to feed these running backs? There is always a potential of that. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think on Monday night against the Lions, they need to pass the ball to win this game. They're not going to be able to just continue to run the ball like they did against the Cowboys. The 8 yards per rush isn't going to be an every down kind of thing. And I do think that Aaron Rodgers is going to be put to the test. It's going to be tough because, not having your number 1 wide receiver out there makes it a difficult, transition. But he has the skill and he has the ability to get there. With Jimmy Graham, with Aaron Jones in the passing game, Allison, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, they'll be fine. That's why I still have confidence in Aaron Rodgers at 8. But again, it's a tricky matchup. Nothing free there. All right, moving on to number 9. All right, so here is a list of 9 through 16. A couple names that you probably, will see on your waiver wires are available. And I think that's for good reason. These guys aren't always consistent, but they have great matchups and have been trending in the right direction as of late. Number 9, Kyler Murray, in the last couple weeks has been decent in terms of being able to make plays with his legs and get fantasy points for owners in that direction. But he has an extremely favorable matchup at home this week against a defense that, again, I will say it every week, the Atlanta Falcons cannot stop a soul defensively. And we were proven just that by Deshaun Watson last week. We've been proving that all year as they've just gotten blown out by every single team, except for that one game that they won miraculously against the they beat the Eagles, right? I'm almost positive. Yeah, they beat the Eagles. Was it the Eagles? Hold up. I got to figure this out now. I'm actually quite curious. Who did the Falcons beat this year? All right, let's see here. Who did the Falcons beat this year? Yeah, they beat the Eagles. Yikes. All right. Anyway, I'm sure the Eagles want that game back. Moving on. Kyler Murray. I don't really care if Christian Kirk plays. I think the biggest thing is whether or not David Johnson plays. If David Johnson's not suiting up, I understand that Chase Edmonds is a viable enough option to be a 3-down back, but David Johnson as a receiver is, it's not a replacing. You cannot replace him at the position. He is such a good receiving back, and the value that he brings to Kyler Murray is like Christian McCaffrey to Kyle Allen, right? Being able to throw him the ball 10 times a game out of the backfield just makes you a better quarterback because it's just going to rack stats for you. So as of right now, Kyler Murray, I hope David Johnson plays. I hope Christian Kirk plays. If they both do, this guy could even be above Rodgers. He could be the number 8 quarterback on the week in my eyes. All right, moving on to number 10, Jameis Winston. It's a little bit more difficult matchup, but they play in London. Here's the thing. Jameis Winston's been on a roll. In terms of playing better, he's trending towards the correct direction in the last couple weeks. And I think, the last time they played against the Carolina Panthers, they won, and he had a pretty decent game. I think it's going to be a more competitive back and forth this week, and I think it's going to be a higher scoring affair because of the defense of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers giving up a lot of points. So it's going to force Winston to come out, have to throw the ball, feed Godwin, feed Evans, hopefully O.J. Howard gets involved. And I think Jameis Winston, like he typically does, is a throwing quarterback. This offense is not going to run the ball very heavily. In fact, they're probably going to run the ball 15 times, and then the rest of it is going to be passes, 40-plus attempts, which is most likely going to happen. So we'll see, Jameis Winston hopefully won't turn over the ball. Again, he's always capable of giving you that, 1 touchdown, 3 interception game or that, 4 touchdown game. That's just the volatility of him, and that's the risk you're willing to take. All right, moving on to number 11, Matthew Stafford. Coming off of a bye week, so he's probably available because a lot of teams dropped him. If not, plays against Green Bay. Again, I think Matthew Stafford trending in the correct direction comparatively to last year. Looked a lot better this year thus far. putting together some pretty good performances. The last time we saw him against the Kansas City Chiefs, had himself a pretty good game. Even probably should have had another touchdown that Galladay, got a little taken away from him in the back of the end zone. But really, I think Matthew Stafford looks good. The offense is better. The offensive line is perfectly fine. There's nothing to be worried about in that case. The whole thing is whether or not, this offense can keep up with a defense that typically is pretty good. I think the pass rush is going to get there. I think the corners and safeties are probably going to, double team Galladay, and the whole thing is going to be whether or not Marvin Jones, who has been typically good in the past against the Packers, whether or not he can step up and have a good performance to kind of carry this offense, for a pretty good amount. So we'll see there. But I still have enough confidence in Stafford to have him as my number 11 quarterback. I do think this is going to be a pretty good back and forth game on Monday night. All right. But typically Monday night games, they've been blowouts. So I don't know. We'll see. Moving on to number 12, Jared Goff. Jared Goff gets to play against the 49ers at home. Jared Goff's been pretty good at home. Home-away splits. I've pointed that out on multiple weeks. I do think if Brandon Cooks plays, even better. Then you have all of your options. But if Todd Gurley's not there, I don't think it makes too big of a difference. Let's be honest. Todd Gurley, the amount of stacked boxes he faces against isn't even that much because they always run that 3 wide receiver set with potentially 1 tight end, so that 11 formation. But so far, so good. I mean, Jared Goff has been okay. I think this matchup is going to force them to have to throw the ball in order to win this game at home. I don't think this team wants to lose 3 in a row, and I'm pretty certain that they're going to fight and claw until the end. And that's going to have a lot of garbage time between Kupp and Jared Goff, whether they win or lose. Cooks being available, Woods being there, Gerald Everett stepping up as of late should be fine. Moving on to number 13, Case Keenum. Again, the Miami Dolphins, worst team defensively thus far this season, and they get to play against Keenum, who has been pretty good this season. Yes, he hasn't played in the last couple weeks because of the fact that they replaced him for Haskins, and then McCoy got the start last week because he was dealing with an injury. If Case Keenum's good to go, which he should be, him and McLaurin should, pretty much pick up where they left off, having pretty good performances back and forth, and he should be a pretty good play this week. I do think that the Redskins are going to win this game. There's a reason that they fired the head coach and they're starting Keenum is because they want to pick up a victory. They want to. And they probably want to pick up this victory more than the Dolphins at this moment in time. So I think Case Keenum's good to go. Moving on to number 14, Carson Wentz. Like I mentioned earlier, I think this is a tougher matchup against the Vikings. Carson Wentz could even be off this list for all I know. It's all going to depend on whether or not he's capable enough to throw against this Vikings defense. A lot of teams aren't capable of doing that, but I think Carson Wentz will be fine. He's going to figure it out. I think it's tough because without the implementation of a Nelson Aguilar or Deshaun Jackson, you really only have 2 options you have to cover. You have to cover Alshon, you have to cover Ertz, and then you got to stop the run. That's not too difficult on defenses. So hopefully maybe they open this up, maybe get Aguilar more involved, maybe they get one of their younger receivers more involved. Arcega-Whiteside hasn't done anything all year. We'll see, but we'll keep an eye on Carson Wentz for now. Phillip Rivers, number 15. Had a 4-point performance last week with 2 interceptions and looked awful. But this week he gets to play against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Defensively have been good, but I do think that Phillip Rivers, I have a hard time not starting Rivers, but at the same time, I don't want to start him because of how bad he was last week. A lot of people have that back and forth in their mind thinking, okay, he really screwed me last week, so should I leave him on the bench? Does he deserve to sit a week? Typically, I don't think that's the right way to go with a guy like Phillip Rivers. We've seen him be consistent. Last week was the first time I've seen him play that bad in quite some time. Offensively, the entire offense was inept. Losing the center, Marquise Pouncey, with an neck injury, not having Russell Okung at the left tackle position. These are things that are going to affect Rivers, right? But I do think because of the fact that the Steelers offensively are going to have troubles, it's going to give Rivers a lot of opportunities to have short field advantages in which he's going to be able to succeed. The last time we saw Keenan Allen play against the Steelers defense last season, Keenan Allen had one of the best games of his entire career. And hopefully we can pick up on something like that and have Phillip Rivers score a touchdown or 2. That's what I'm assuming. So that's why he's at 15. Moving on to number 16, last quarterback on today's video, Gardner Minshew. All right, here's the thing. there's a lot of other quarterbacks that could be here. We could put Jimmy Garoppolo. We could put Teddy Bridgewater. We could put Andy Dalton. We could put Kirk Cousins here. But personally, I think Gardner Minshew's consistency, the amount of yards that he threw for last week, I think it was like 370 something. It was almost 400 passing yards in a game in which, again, this guy's only thrown one interception, and that was in the first week of the season. Since then, 2 touchdowns a game. Pretty suit for him, throwing a bunch of yards against the Saints, a defense that is good against the run and typically has been poor against the passing game. Corners, Latimer's been pretty good in the last couple of weeks, but I do think they have their weaknesses here and there that I'm pretty sure Gardner Minshew will be able to take care of. The guy's been ridiculous, and that's why he is making his appearance on the top 16 quarterback list, for this week. The first time here, and hopefully the first of many, but we'll see. All right, guys, those are my top 16 quarterbacks. Thank you for watching today's video. Tight end video should be somewhere like somewhere there, like right there. Up there should be a tight end video. Actually, you know what? I'm probably pointing at my subscribe button. If you hover this, you can click subscribe. But over there, there should be the tight end video for later today. But typically people don't watch that because you guys only have one tight end, and that's not a big deal. So anyway, thank you everybody for watching. Until next time, which will be tight ends, or I don't know what we'll do on Friday. We'll do hidden gems maybe. We'll see. But either way, thank you everybody for watching. And until next time, I'll see you guys. Peace.